What's up, everyone? It's Q from Retro Q Gaming, and I'm sure you've seen lots of different variations on this video around the internet lately, the last few days, for good reason, to be honest. I feel like this is definitely a justified topic, and most, if not all of the, whatever we'll call it, criticism is pretty much warranted. But I'm not going to talk about that for the main reason that you'd probably expect, and the main reason that a lot of the other videos cover. So anyway, we'll get right into it. The main thing is that Mighty Number 9 has finally released after a wildly successful Kickstarter, and then it had a bit of a troubled development period. It was delayed a couple of times, one of which was delayed at essentially the last second, which is never a good sign. But that's the whole thing, pretty much, the whole story about that, the story that we're going to cover. But like I said, not for the main reason. We're going to talk more about the actual Kickstarter side of it rather than the actual Mighty Number 9 part of it. I will mention a little bit of Mighty Number 9 as well. So obviously Mighty Number 9 is basically the spiritual successor to Mega Man. Obviously it's created by Keiji Inafune, who is the creator of Mega Man, and because Capcom wouldn't let him do anything with Mega Man, he basically said, okay, I'm going to go take the Kickstarter, fund my own development team and all, and make what is going to be essentially a clone of Mega Man and Mega Man X. I'm a huge Mega Man X fan. Some of the best platforming games, best platforming series even. So obviously, yeah, best platforming games. And I absolutely love the 2D Mega Man X collections, or well, Mega Man X games. Never really got much of a chance to play the original Mega Man games because I didn't really have a NES and all back then. Sure, you played the emulator and all every so often, but no, Mega Man X was my shit back in the day. I lived on, I think it's X 1 through 6, and then it started going 3D, and that was a whole other story that didn't successfully make a transition. So we all know, right, Mighty Number 9 did release a few days ago. There was many issues. So a lot of the issues out there range from, say, people getting the wrong codes. So naturally your Kickstarter code would have been emailed to you. There was so many people that, say, had opted in for a PC code and they got a console code. There's so many people that had a console code ordered and they got either the wrong console code, they got the PC code, or they got a code for their specific console that didn't work. There's also rumors, well, not rumors, I'll say reports of Wii U versions of the game actually bricking entire Wii U's with the actual download code. So that's definitely a bad sign. So between all the, now that's only the launch code troubles and all as well. Apparently the game is also very buggy, very glitchy. I don't want to say very unoptimized. I want to, because that implies kind of hardware fails and all that as well. It's like coding unoptimized, as well as it feels clunky and sluggish in certain ways, certain important ways for a 2D side-scrolling platformer, at least anyway. So that's a pretty big thing, because I mean, when you essentially only have like 2 or 3 mechanics to your entire game, they have to be pretty tight. Otherwise, if one of them is bad, it's going to glare through. If you've more than one of them is bad, there's going to be some severe issues. Other than that, the quality of the game and the variety in the game and all, it hasn't got the most glowing and outstanding reviews, like stuff like, say, the variations and the actual kind of level design and all as well, and the I won't call them gimmicks, but gimmicks and mechanics, we'll say, throughout the actual levels and the boss fights and all as well. It's getting pretty poor reviews on multiple places. Not only all of that, having said all of that, there was an issue where a lot of Kickstarter backers were unhappy. I completely agree with them on this point. I didn't back Mighty Number 9, and I don't plan on playing it. But the big issue, another big issue as well, is the fact that even though these people on Kickstarter helped back the game, helped fund it, helped create it into existence by their funding, all the review outlets and all that as well got their review copies before actual backers, and people who paid for the game have got their copies. Now, a lot of people can say, it's like, oh, well, that's how it usually works. Okay, yeah, that is usually how it works, but this is Kickstarter. Like I said a second ago, these people literally paid for this game to be made. They funded this game. So without them, there would be no Mighty Number 9. Probably something, actually, in hindsight, probably something we're better off if that had have happened. But you get the idea. That's obviously going to take a couple of people off. Completely understandable. And yeah, that's not the greatest thing. So we've pretty much covered all of that, and like I said, the game is supposedly not very good, and I just want to throw in one little other aspect on top of it as well, because I've been talking about the game itself and all for far too long. So to top all of that off, in the actual launch stream of Mighty Number 9, when the actual development team and the development studio were actually playing the game live on Twitch and all, one of them actually said, and if this is not a glowing review for your product, I don't know what is. But one of them actually said, sure, it may not be perfect, but it's better than nothing. Could you imagine saying that about something that... saying it to a group of people who have paid $4 million to help create this project, and that's your reasoning and rationale and logic behind the entire thing? Fuck that. That's all I'd say. Personally, the whole debacle and just the quality, the perceived quality, I should say, of Mighty Number 9 has me very wary of anything with Inafune's name attached to it from now on. Now, like I said, I love the Mega Man X series, so it's not like I'm just completely going out of nowhere. I love this thing. I'm not just hating on him because of it, but he hadn't made a game in a while. Then he comes out with this, and something he should essentially be king at. And look what it is. And look what happened to it and all as well. So that's one whole other issue as well. But we'll see how that pans out in the future. I'm sure I'm not the only person that's wary of anything with his name on it from now on. But now, 7 minutes into the video, and I'm finally getting around to the bit that I actually want to talk about. And that is Kickstarter. So this is a perfect example of one of the many issues that can arise with funding game development on Kickstarter. There's so many other ones as well. I mean, you've got stories of people who are getting a huge amount of funding and all as well, and then just obviously, fucking off and going away and stealing the money essentially. There's people that are doing that kind of thing. The game falls through and never gets made. There's loads of other stuff. There's game comes out, it's crap or it's buggy and glitchy and all as well, like Mighty Number 9. So that's a whole other thing. Even with a big name and someone, a seasoned veteran like Inafune attached to it, it just goes to show that Kickstarter, while a novel idea and a decent idea, can go really wrong, and these people have basically no recourse from it because they have funded the game, so it's they've already paid for their copy essentially, and that can go pretty poorly. Now, one thing like this that does have me worried for another Kickstarter project in the future. I've only ever backed one Kickstarter project, and I'll probably never back a second one. But the one Kickstarter project I have backed, but that I'm also now slightly worried for, is Shenmue 3. Now, we all know, the adventures of Ryo Hazuki is legendary at this point, and you know how it is. If you know anything about Kickstarter or gaming essentially lately, yeah, you know what Shenmue 3 is anyway. So, or you know what the Shenmue series is, I should say. And because of all that, like even with Yu Suzuki himself setting up the development team, setting up the Kickstarter for Shenmue 3 development and all, and obviously he was Shenmue 1 and 2, so by that logic we should think, okay, fair enough, he is Shenmue 1, he is Shenmue 2, it's logically he would be able to create a proper sequel and a worthwhile worthy title and entry in the Shenmue series. As we've learned from other developers and other creators as it is now, that is not always the case. As well as coupled with some of the stuff you do see that, like I said, I have I have backed the Shenmue Kickstarter, and I do get regular updates. I get the email updates and all as well. Having said that, when you see some of the stuff they're doing with it, some of the way not the graphics, but some of the art designs and the design choices, and just some of the stuff, the whole stretch goal thing. Now that's not specifically limited to Shenmue, but that's more so all of them, or all the ones that use them. It's essentially, you get the idea where, it almost feels like well, we'll backtrack a second actually now for just before I get into two separate points there. Back to what I was saying with some of the changes and design choices coming from Yu Suzuki himself. Like I said, the guy who created Shenmue 1 and 2, and then he thinks these choices and all that a lot of people, not just myself, are unhappy about Shenmue 3. Yeah, you get the idea. It can be kind of off-putting and kind of worrying. I'm still giving him the benefit of the doubt. I don't know if some people say I should, some people say I shouldn't, especially with the whole Inafune thing as well. People have been bringing that up as well as a point. Just because it's got a seasoned vet or someone, they're not perfect. They could easily fuck this up. Sure, they could, but it remains to be seen. I mean, the game is tentatively scheduled for the end of next year's release for Shenmue 3. So we'll see how it goes. There's plenty of time for stuff to happen, stuff to change, and all in there. And that brings me back to the second point that I wanted to talk about a second ago that I almost kind of rambled into. And that is stretch goals. So I realize game development is expensive. Game development takes time and it costs funds because obviously you need to pay for stuff like wages, rent, development, tools, in the case of like computers, whatever. You've got bills to pay, all that kind of stuff. You've got what we'll essentially call salaries. It's just because of it's basically wages. You got to pay your development team after all. Hiring other stuff as well, actors, motion cap, voice actors, stuff like that. You have to, all that costs money. And yes, I'm well aware all that costs a lot of money. Having said that, right, when you see a game that, let's say they're asking for $2 million, okay, and you look at that game and you say, okay, $2 million, and that game gets made. And then you look at the stretch goals, and it's not just an extra language pack, maybe 2.5 million. You get, I don't know, an extra skill system added into the game, or an elaborated skill system, or new chapters or something like that added into the game. And at 3 million, same deal. You get something extra. You get extra side stories and extra side quests and all. Like I said, I realize that stuff takes time, and more time equals more money, essentially. But because of all that, if they don't hit all those stretch goals, it feels like, to me at least anyway, it feels like they're not creating what they have as their perfect artistic or creative design for the game. And like, oh, well, sure, we only made this amount of money. We can only afford to put baseline or X amount of content in instead of, Z, which would be the whole thing. But I don't know, it's really strange. I get really worried about that. And like I said, I know I've said it a few times now, I do realize that stretch goals are obviously coming from, sure, we need more time to make this, therefore we need more money to make this. And I completely understand that. But at the same time, when you just think, why not? Okay, if that's the case, like if you're originally asking for 2 million, but you've got stretch goals all the way up in 500,000 increments, all the way up to 5 million, why not just ask for 5 million? I realize that, yeah, it's like, oh, well, 2 million's a much, much easier entry point and people would be more willing to donate and all that kind of stuff. Sure, that's the case, but still at the same time, I won't say find a compromise, but maybe, I don't know, I don't like that idea. It feels like if the game doesn't hit its top stretch goal, it makes me feel like that, oh, well, they're only half-assing the game, or they're only putting in some of the stuff. Screw your artistic vision for the game and just put in whatever they paid for. Now, I'm not even going to bother. I've covered it all already with the whole fucking time and money thing. That's just always in my mind. And yeah, sure, in the case of, say, Shenmue or whatever, it's nice that these games are actually getting made. That's a whole other video that I won't even fully get into, the fact that we basically have to pay for them and all, but to fund. I'm not gonna get into all that just because, but it highlighted this whole video and the whole situation with the Inafune and Mighty Number 9 Kickstarter, as well as in a small essence the Shenmue 3 and Yu Suzuki's Kickstarter. It highlights the problems, the pros and cons of Kickstarter. And I don't know, maybe I'm just too, what's the word I'm looking for? Maybe I'm just too pessimistic. I prefer to call myself a bit of a realist rather than pessimist, but I just get kind of worried and I see that kind of thing and I'm just thinking, well, we'll see. It's not a perfect situation, it's not a perfect setup, but we'll see how it is anyway. So that's basically going to be it, because this video has gone on for like twice as long as I expected. So let me know your thoughts on the whole, specifically the whole Mighty Number 9 Kickstarter, the Mighty Number 9 quality and everything around that's just surrounding Mighty Number 9, be it Kickstarter, development or post-launch, whatever it is. The quality of the game is obviously in there too. So you let me know all of that, as well as your opinions and all on Kickstarter in general. Simply because it's video game Kickstarters, I should say, in the situations like, you know, you've got Shenmue, you've got Red Ash, which I think completely failed. There was the whole Allison Road thing where they had a Kickstarter and they cancelled it because they got a publishing deal with Team 17, which has now fallen through. So yeah, there's plenty of stuff to worry about on that. Let me know all that anyway in the comments section below. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. You can follow me on Twitter, details in the description below. Thank you for watching, and see you in the rest of the videos in my channel.